You try not to base your value upon how your clientele is doing, but you can't help but just be so happy with them when you see that progress, when they get tearful, when they get excited and they come back and they tell me the news that I actually faced that bridge or that height or that spider or that snake, and that situation I'd be terrified of thinking it was there, and so it's hard not to absorb that and be joyous with them. So it's really good.
What's going on, everybody? Kyle Powers here, Haven Real Estate Group at eXp Realty, here with another episode of Local Legends of the Flint Hills, where business meets community. I've got a very special guest here with me, Tony Cabena with Freedom Behavioral Health Solutions, and he's our second guest from the office here. But Tony has a very unique and very special niche that he's able to do, and that is exposure therapy. So, Tony, thank you so much for joining me today, man. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
I know we've been kind of bouncing around, so I appreciate you taking the time. So let's dive in, man. So exposure therapy, and psychotherapists and everything that comes with that, where did you say, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and how did that come about?
Oh man. Okay, I'll give the abridged version on that, but basically a fair amount of anxiety that came from childhood and what have you, and eventually my father kept pushing me into situations for, fear of public speaking or fear of just being in front of people in general, and my father kept going like, okay, you have to get in front of the public eye, so in high school you gotta go for football, you gotta go for choir, you gotta go for whatever, and I kept telling my dad, I don't want to, and he's like, no, you have to keep facing it, and so over a given amount of time, his knowledge of his background influenced me to where I just got over that fear, and I was able to do so much more than I used to with interacting with people. And then eventually I went for a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I went into that, and my schooling, it just furthered my interest in the exposure world, and then I have this personal interest with my overall education, and it just came to fruition. So.
No, I love that. So, and that's been, I think, a big piece of your journey too. I mean, we talked last time I was here that you were, your previous employer, you were like pushing to do something there, and then finally you teamed up with these guys and at Freedom, and you were able to really kind of dive deeper into the world of exposure and stuff there. So, let's talk about that, because I think that's probably my biggest. The piece that I love anyway, that I think is really neat, is the virtual reality stuff that you're able to really do. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about that exposure and how that came about, and then what you're able to do here for your clients.
Right. So all this is based off of the exposure in general. This is in addition to the exposure therapy. So this virtual reality and augmented reality exposure therapy is the extension of the world that's been set up for a long time standing in research space. So basically the short story is that you continue to face your fears until they eventually evaporate, and they just don't hold any sway, like a scary movie over and over again. You keep watching a scary movie and it just no longer has that impact. And the neat thing about the virtual reality and the augmented reality with the headsets and all is that we can go to different locations, or we can identify specific objects that we couldn't bring in your standard clinic, be it of cats, dogs, height, so on and so forth, without a huge amount of hassle as well as a safety issue. So with this augmented reality in the virtual world, we're able to take the person there and then in a very safe way, and then able to get them out of that, as well as to minimize or maximize that exposure. So make it really small and simple, or a lot more challenging that meets their needs.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the big piece, right? Like hopefully we have time to do it, and we can kind of show it. But let's talk about military, right? The PTSD and the difference of, we're in the middle of Kansas, and as we look outside, there's snow everywhere. Well, you can't recreate a desert environment or something like that. So I want to know, and the viewers, I want them to understand like how powerful that is, that you can take them back to, that sand environment and that kind of stuff, and what that's able to do.
Yeah, so with that specifically, we've been working hand in hand with another company in Texas on this software company. we're able to create the desert environment with the gear, with the trucks, with the tanks, with the helicopters. And we're able to add in or take away, be it sounds or objects, so that the person can gradually get to that exposure that they need versus trying to just face it all in their memory or have to literally go back to Kandahar or go back to Iraq or any desert environment where they might have had their traumatic experience or challenging experience. So with these programs, or this specific program with PTSD, we're able to pause, we're able to add a few things, we're able to turn down the volume so that compared to having to imagine it, and that's the battle with most of the be it vets with PTSD, is that they have to go back there in their minds. Well, this is a way for them to visually see a part of that and walk through it, as well as be able to pause or stop or take it off. So they have that control versus a memory that won't let them have that control. So this program assists us with that, as with all the stimulation. Even we're going for smell-o-vision to possibly turn that one up. So we're getting there with that.
That's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
That's cool because I mean that's so much of that is just your senses that'll bring you right back there.
Oh, absolutely. The crunching of the sands, the rain, the gunfire, the mortars, the diesel engines, you name it, the Bradleys, the Abrams, the speaking of Arabic, the goats, all those sounds we try to include, as well as if it's too much, we're able to dial it back down or take them out one piece at a time, like Legos, so that we're able to add up to where the person's able to face it at the level that they feel they are capable of doing it, compared to what this therapy is originally based off of, which was, again, prolonged exposure therapy. All of that is based off of the imagination of going back into the memory. And the battle with that versus the program is that, one, the person might battle with that imagination, and two, they just can't get themselves there. But with this environment, we can help get them there and transport and then stop everything for them versus the memory that won't allow them to stop. So this acts as an assistant to their brain. So it's really neat stuff that we're doing.
Yeah. So. Well, and it's groundbreaking though too, right? Like the fact that, think about how many lives, one, that you're going to be able to improve. Number two is you're doing it all from the safety of your own room, right? Of this room that we're in, you're doing it from the safety. If it gets too much, you're tearing it off. You're back to where you are.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the big piece that you're able to really kind of pull into this.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was one of the major features we talked about when we created with this company in Texas, where I said I need to be able to pause it instantly and have them pause it instantly. I need to be able to get out or get into the program, to turn down, to turn up at the pace, the sensory information that they're going to be taking on. We can just add little bits. We could turn it back down. Or the beautiful things you talked about, if immediately they get so overwhelmed and they need to take it off, they're in the desert and all of a sudden the thing goes off and they're right here in a very safe environment and they're able to take it little by little. And so we try and take that into consideration, because all those who battle PTSD, and not just be it our soldiers and our vets, but all those with PTSD, it's one of the hardest things they have to face, and they just don't know how to face it, but they're very strong individuals without the tools, be it of our tools or the tools psychologically that was never really been provided. It's a way out to get them back into the life a little bit. Forgive me for the plug in terms of the place, but Freedom Behavioral Health Solutions, we're trying to add more freedom back into their life versus the memory controlling them. So that program is just really snazzy to be able to add pieces for them that they can manage, bite sizes, facing the terribleness one at a time. So that's just that program alone that I really enjoy, and we're adding more and more to it. So.
Yeah. No, and that's amazing. I think it's going to be. I'm excited to see where you guys take this, because I think it's going to be a neat opportunity. And I think the other thing too, I really kind of want to hit on is that it's not just for that program specifically, is PTSD and things like that. But what you're doing here is not just for that, because you talked to me about fear of heights, fear of spiders, and the you can't see in the video, but there's a tape on the ground that has certain. A foot by foot by foot, just getting closer to your fear and kind of exposing yourself to those things in a safe and controlled environment. I think that's the biggest piece.
Yes.
So I guess let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk about kind of your client experience, right? Okay. What does that look like for them? What can they kind of expect when they reach out to you and they set that appointment and kind of get into this?
Yeah. So the first session is basically getting to know you, is going through expectations, problems, identifying how much you really need or you want something to change in your life. And again, if it's related to some type of fear, some type of phobias, even OCD or PTSD, it's like, all right, let's really examine together what it is that you want to accomplish. And then if it is in the exposure realm and you're really motivated to be like, I'm so sick of this and I want it to change, this type of therapy is for you. It's little by little. So the first session is just, who am I? Who's Tony and what are we doing here and what do I want to do? And then eventually it's laying out the whole session, like session after session, this is the next session. And then this is going to eventually come around. So it miles away of here comes the exposure and here's what's expected of me. And at any point, and extremely important here, any point, you could pump the brakes. You can be like, no, I got to stop. This is kind of intense. We go, okay, we'll dial it back down. And it's always a level with all of the phobias and with the OCD and the PTSD. It's just, there's this lack of control that a person feels that fear, that anxiety, that dread has taken over their lives. And what we try to do is we want to get their life back because all those fears have claimed that. And so little by little, what's coming and you have the power to pause it or to turn it up or to put it off for the next session. But little by little, the more you face it, the stronger you become and the less and the weaker that fear and anxiety becomes. So it's personally, I absolutely love it because of my history combined with, again, that direct result of seeing the client just make those changes and just seeing that excitement and the tears get into their eyes, like, I actually can do this versus this long standing of like, okay, you know what, I'll just grit my teeth and I'll white knuckle it and I'll survive. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's a chance of getting the life back that you might have remembered. So that's kind of a little bit of the therapy for all of it, be it the PTSD, for the OCD, and all the fears, is setting it up and then allowing it to be, coming miles away so that the exposure is coming like the fourth session or the third session and you're ready for it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think the thing to be clear too is that no matter how big or small, you want to help them, right? Like you want to help with everything. You want to help with the job, whatever it is, right? Whether it's spiders or debilitating PTSD, and anything. I think we're looking at a steering wheel here too. So driving and things like that. I think that's the piece of having this exposure therapy to it, I think is probably the thing I'd like to kind of give to people, right? And to give you want to give them back their lives in that sense. So
absolutely, and that's and again, there's so many categories of things that people are battling with on a daily basis that you pass them and you wouldn't know, but they know deep down. They want to be able to have that control, be it in which we have a fear of driving or fear of bridges or fear of highways or a fear of weather implements, just in that category of driving alone. So any of those fears, any of those phobias, any of those personal battles that you go, I just can't face this. Well, it doesn't have to be with the virtual reality or the augmented reality, but it's a tool to assist in that direction of little by little, I want to face this fear. And a person is, like I said, it's really neat to see a person get a little bit of their life back, and then that's motivating to get to the next piece. So it's really neat stuff. And these tools that we have just give us all the more advantage to assist the clients with the battle they have.
Right. Tony, what prompted you for all the VR stuff that you're doing here with the exposure? What prompted you to be like, I need to do this, I need to bring this into it, and then how do you customize it for each individual client?
So back in school, they were talking about this. It was this up and coming where it goes, we have this technology and it's a possibility to gain access to areas or to objects that you couldn't have in a clinic. And I was excited by that. And in general, no insult to my schooling, but they're like, we don't have that, and it costs a lot of money. And so technology and the research, and it just wasn't caught up at the time. And I just had a personal hunger for this. And I want to be able to be like, let's go and let's face those heights. And so with the schooling, that technology piece finally caught up with what I was capable of doing and what the therapy was. So I was like, okay, so that's kind of the origins of this. It's been around, but it's just finally, due to the entertainment industry, we've actually able to apply this to the therapeutic realm.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. And then how do you customize it?
customizing is a very interesting piece. So I have to get creative, but I do know once I understand what it is that are the limitations, of the fears, the concerns, I'm able to go into the program that we have, or a couple programs that we have, and we're able to meet that based upon their subjective fear, their overall battle that they have. And we go, okay, now that we know that we can deliver that, and here it is, let's start talking about how you're going to get closer to that thing, whatever that is, little by little, until your body eventually adapts and you, in general, the whole system calms down and you feel more in control and you feel a little bit braver on this. So trying to create it person by person, once I know what they have, I have the programs to add it in. It just takes a tiny bit of tweaking with the original system.
Yeah. VR is so, you're right. I mean, the entertainment industry has really kind of brought it along, but VR and utilizing it for, with Freedom Health and everything here, there's got to be some challenges. And so I'm curious as to know what challenges that you have come across, and then how have you overcome those with your clients?
Well, I mean, just in general, in terms of the VR, the augmented reality, the virtual reality, is be it the hardware and the software in general, is making sure that it's always up to date and someone is updating some software. So those challenges in general, just with the technology, is a battle. And then it's to be able to have that stuff, have the gear perform exactly the way you want to without some random update. So that's been mainly the challenge, the barriers I've had to overcome, be it the modifications that I have or updates in software. As any of us know, be it computers, we have that battle of, oh, look, this thing should work, and all of a sudden it doesn't turn on the way it wants to, or we have a new update, and the modifications that we've added no longer work. So we have to, for me, it's always being on my toes in the software world. And in terms of the therapy world, when the VR and the AR are optimal, and things are copacetic, then it's not so much of barriers I have, it's just more of the therapy itself and the individual trying to face the difficult things, even though they know it's coming. It's just one of the biggest challenges they have in their life, even though it's like, oh, this is just a spider. Why is it a big deal? No, it's a huge deal. Right. And so even a little spider, that's the biggest issue of having them stay with it in terms of therapy. So it's mainly the software, not so much of the actual application of the software and the hardware.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you went to school for, right? So you
Yes.
should be you should be good on that one.
Absolutely. Didn't go to school to be a software engineer. So.
Right. Okay. Well, that's perfect though. That's a good opportunity. So let's talk about your success stories, right? Obviously, you wouldn't be doing this unless you're getting a lot of being able to change lives and do things that way. So if I'm going to ask you right now, like, what's one person, one client, one case that you've been like, this is my success story? Would you be able to share some on that?
Oh, obviously, there's a couple in my mind, but individual is just absolutely terrified of heights, and she's always had that battle, and even in terms of be it bridges, or even if the bridge was 2 feet tall, and so there is that personal battle, but. It's watching her make progress session after session and trying to challenge herself outside of the room. She's finally getting that chance to go where she wants to go, be it in traveling, bridges or second story buildings, looking out the window. So you don't really think about it too much until you take the things that around you for granted, that's not a problem for you. And for her, it's starting to add back into getting her life. So that's definitely one. And then the other one is just that being ruled by the fear of spiders, arachnophobia. Yeah. And so being able to return to that world where she was not always concerned about the spiders going to hurt her and get her, it doesn't have that physiological reaction. And so it's once again that I want my life back, but they've just had to accept it for longest times of, okay, well, I have to adapt. This is life. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. So it's hard to not to get, you try not to base your value upon how your clientele is doing, but you can't help but just be so happy with them when you see that progress, when they get tearful, when they get excited and they come back and they tell me the news that I actually faced that bridge or that height or that spider or that snake. And, that situation, I'd be terrified at thinking it was there. And so it's just so, like I said, it's hard not to absorb that and be joyous with them. Yeah. So it's really good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and I think back to that, if they just accepted it, I heard something the other day, and it's what was it? It was something along the lines of what we deal with or what we put up with eventually becomes our reality. And so I think it's one of those opportunities that you're able to change that reality for them.
Absolutely.
So, no, I love that. So, Tony, with this being so new and with this technology being kind of, the front running of this piece of the exposure piece of this, what do you envision for the future of VR, augmented reality, and what that is, and how do you see this or where this is going?
Oh, I am just so excited by where this can possibly go. It's going to be clearer. It's going to be crisper. It's going to be pretty much it's like the if you know from the old Star Trek, the holodeck stuff. Yeah. My overall desire is to get to that point where we can create that and it looks one for one. And so I know that with our technology, with the companies, and also with the money, again, to give credit where credit's due, of the entertainment industry and the video games, and they're the ones that bring that in, that gives the rest of us the advantage and the excitement. So the more that they adapt, the more the technology starts to boom, it's just up for all the augmented reality exposure and virtual reality exposure that we have. So the pathway is just crisper, cleaner, lighter, and much easier to access. Yeah. And it's not only that, I mean, not just in terms of exposures, but even potential areas for the communities to come together, that they also feel like I have that same problem. So even the chat rooms or whatever, to be able to go there and to visit each other and to have that support group. Yeah. So there's so many things of where it can go. It's hard to have a level of prediction other than technology is just fast-paced and exploding. So I don't know what's going to come next. I have to continue to keep on my edge. Otherwise, this new technology passes me by, which has been, oh my goodness, the technology. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, it's the technology itself has been a completely different game changer just in the last 10 years.
Yes.
And it's going to like you said, it's going to continue to exponentially be better and better.
Yes,
so.
totally.
Okay, so somebody watching this video, if they have have something they want to talk to you about, something they want to come in, maybe it's set an appointment, whatever that is. One, how do they get a hold of you? Two, how do they come in? How do they set that appointment and get all that stuff there?
Yeah, it's just mainly about calling Freedom Behavioral Health Solutions. We're here in Manhattan, and come on. I mean, you make an appointment. You make sure that your insurance, you and your insurance are good with this, and it's just setting it up and knowing what you're involved with. And it's not so much of setting up the appointments. It's knowing it's that personal decision that you have to make. You go, do I want to face this? Do I want to get through this? Am I at that point where I'm tired enough of this carving out a life and living in my life to where I can't move like I used to? Yeah. And so it's just calling Freedom Behavioral Health Solutions, coming on in and just seeing me, and we got the lab all set up for you. So.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's I mean, you kind of did it there, but is there anything else you want to add to anybody watching this video before we kind of wrap it up?
No, I mean, other than the things that the pieces that it can change. You're not alone. I know that these could be very challenging, but it's something that is normalized that we all don't talk about, that's in the background, that we just kind of shrug our shoulders and move on. And it's just like a secret of ours that we just have to adapt to. And it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to just accept it and this is your new life, this thing that's taken up root in your life, and you don't have that freedom. To come to Freedom Behavioral Health Solutions and to go through this means that there's a possibility that you can get your life back, and you don't have to be ruled by those fears, by those aversions, by those struggles that you have on a daily basis. So that just gives a person some hope for change.
Yeah. No, I love that. So, well, and Tony, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really do appreciate it. And I guess I want to tell you guys that if you're watching this and you made it to this point, just reach out. I think that one of the big things that we all do, right? I'm guilty of it too. We all suffer in silence when it comes to this stuff. And I think, decide what that is and decide to make that change and reach out to these guys. I mean, I've now been here twice now with two different people here, and they're fantastic people. You're going to be met with open arms and an opportunity to potentially change where your new normal is, right? And I think that's the big thing, is that not agreeing to stay stagnant and not agreeing to accept this as your normal. I think getting out and making those changes and making that stuff, because spiders isn't my thing, but my wife, I know that she is like totally freaks out when it comes to a spider. So it's one of those things where it's like that can be debilitating to people. And I think that's the thing, is just reach out to these guys, talk to them, figure out what it is how they can help you, and see what it is. So, but at this point, I appreciate you guys watching. So thank you so much. And if you haven't done so and you do enjoy this content, please go and hit that subscribe button. Go and hit that little bell so you get notified of any future content. And please, 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 reach out to these guys. Share this video with somebody that you think needs to get in here and take a look at this, right? I don't care who it is, where it is. These guys are willing and able to help. So go ahead and reach out to them. I'm definitely going to tell you, you will not be disappointed when you reach out. So thank you, Tony, so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. And yeah, let's get some more help out there.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sounds good.